What has investors excited about what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, well, for one, it's a huge market. And so just to give you a sense of that, our
So what does that
market
mean?
is
Huge
essentially,
market. Yeah. Like what's the market cap?
yeah, our market is essentially equivalent to the number of software developers in the
Oh,
world.
that's really
And
interesting.
so
Okay.
if you think about it that way, and if you think about how
Mm-hmm.
we price essentially based on the size of the development organization,
Mm-hmm.
and you scale that out, there's currently 26 million software developers in the world.
Is that
That's
all?
expected to double
My
in the
God.
next 10 years. 50 million software developers
In the next 10 years?
in the next 10 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so if you just do the base math,
Mm-hmm.
our standard pricing, $400 per developer per year, multiplied
Yeah.
by 50 million developers,
Right.
it's a massive market, right?
Massive.
So
Yeah.
if you think about investors, like step one, it's got to be a big market.
Yep.
We got that. Step two, if you look at the investors that we work with, one thing that's really unique about most of them is that they've all been operators,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all operators relatively recently
Mm-hmm.
to when to becoming investors. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think about that, every operator has felt the pain that we're solving
Mm-hmm.
because they're sitting there, they're running these technology companies, they're centering the business around delivery of this. The sales guys are wondering, when can I sell the thing?
Right.
The customer success people are, how do I renew, placate, excite my customers to grow them?
Mm-hmm.
Marketing people are wondering, how do we talk about the things that are building? I got to do all this work to launch the product, and
Mm-hmm.
when is the product actually going to show up? And with all this in hand, and you look at how developer salaries are increasing,
Mm-hmm.
the cost of running a technology business is going up, and you're saying, I have to run my organization centered around the technology organization, and I don't understand the productivity of the organization, the capacity of the organization, the commitments and delivery of the
Mm-hmm.
organization. All I have is qualitative statements.
Mm.
Meanwhile, in the boardroom, every other organization is quantified, has data, and is bringing
Right.
that data to bear to
Right.
support the predictability and reliability of their organization.
That's so
So you can
interesting.
look at any board meeting in any company around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and the problem that we're solving is a problem that's present.
How do the engineers feel about this?
Yeah,
I mean, it almost, and I'm probably being too dramatic here, occurs as Big Brother is watching.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, um, this is something we thought about really deeply before we
Good.
started the company, and we
Yeah.
made very intentional product choices to alleviate this. And it goes down to one very simple thing: you don't create an overarching universal scoring mechanism that
Okay.
reduces a human to a number.
Right.
Because if you create a singular number, that number is going to get gamed.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what you do is you focus on two aspects, and you take those two aspects and you look at them at the individual team and organization level. So the two aspects are internal consistency.
Mm-hmm.
How does a person, a team, or an organization do over time?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a very consistent behavior, whatever the behavior is, that makes it predictable and reliable? Or is it an erratic behavior? So that's number one. And number two is you create the data in ways that they're naturally in contention with each other. So you optimize one at the expense of the
Mm-hmm.
other one goes down. So that what you really need to do is optimize them all together so
Mm-hmm.
you're at this equilibrium. And if you successfully do that, guess what? You're a highly predictable, highly reliable, highly efficient team of people. And so this net tension actually creates the outcome that you want. So for example,
Hmm.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
I want to deliver more features faster,
Okay.
and I want to reduce the cycle time of a ticket,
Okay.
right? Of a feature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if we take those two concepts, I could take all my features and cut them down into little tiny pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And so I deliver more of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, wow, I spiked that metric. right? And then the cycle time goes way down because each feature is really small. Well, if you do that, what you've done is you've increased visibility into progress,
Mm-hmm.
and you've created a really predictable pattern that allows you to understand at a really granular level how far you've gotten towards delivery because of how small you've chunked this up.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you've actually done is by trying to game it, you've created a more predictable outcome.
Right.
And so it nets out as a positive for the organization. Now there's limits to that,
Mm-hmm.
but the limits become really evident as you inspect the data.
So in selling this to head of engineering, CTO, whoever that might be, depending on the size of the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they just purchase it? Do they go back to their engineering team and say, "Hey, we're looking to purchase this," and to create that expectation of this is not Big Brother. This is going to actually improve how we work together. It's going to give us visibility into where we're making mistakes, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that you're creating an expectation rather than all of a sudden, oh shit, look what's going on now.
And engineering orgs are somewhat unique, I find, in how consistently they behave this way. This is not a command and control organization.
Right.
This is a servant leader organization.
Right.
So invariably, the way our product gets purchased 99% of the time is that the head of engineering or a director or somebody in the engineering leadership, they learn about the product. As they get excited about the product, what they do is they champion a committee to evaluate the product. And that's typically one or two of their reports and one or two of their reports, right? So you're looking at least 3 levels in the org.
Yeah.
And those folks, you're looking for buy-in from that mini pyramid of
really
folks.
Smart, yeah.
And if you don't get that 3 levels of buy-in, you're not going to close the deal.
No.
That is very, very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And what our product does is it services each of those levels differently to their work patterns and to their individualized outcomes, so that the team leads get a place to live that actually makes their life better. The directors get a place to live that makes their life better. And the VPs get a place to live that makes their life better. So there's something for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then our customer success team integrates with them really well using tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams. We actually create direct connections. So we're in their Slack and they can just chat with us. And so what we often find with our customers is they think we actually work for the same company, because we become a resource to them that they can access in the same way they access their coworkers.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And so now, as an integrated part of the company, we're able to help them work towards that common goal of being a predictable, reliable organization. And the any sense of like big brotherness or any kind of watching or kind of punitive activity, that disappears within the first few minutes of being engaged with them.
I love that.
If it existed at all.
Yeah, right. So are there any places, Hersh, where once this is installed and up and running, where there's some sort of failure in these levels anywhere? And why would that be?
Yeah, what we find is if there's massive organizational disruption, which happens,
turnover,
in companies from time
that
to
kind
time,
of thing, just and change of control,
turnover,
anything like that. Okay.
Could be change of control, could be a M&A type thing. What happens in that moment is, well, let me put it this way. What we rarely get is someone saying, we don't want to use you. What we sometimes will get is someone saying, like, we need to reset because we're going through this frothiness.
Through this drama.
But what happens in that moment is, because we've become so trusted, is they often come back to us and say, can you help co-create what our new organization should look like to be most effective? Because we have this view of the world that most people don't have. And it's led us to do things like, recently we published industry benchmarking data. And it's live data that updates every single week as our customer set grows. And it gives you today 5 key benchmarks that are agnostic to style and size of company.
Right.
That anybody can use to benchmark their organization.
Sure.
So because we have that superset of data, we're able to help people in ways that, they're otherwise limited.
That's interesting. What's your sales cycle look like?
So it depends on size of company.
Right.
But typical company, we're able to do a trial in like 20 days. And then, and the reason we're able to do that is 15, 20 minutes to set up with us. 24 hours later, all the historical data has been processed, and you have full access to the platform. Everything's propagated, everything's modeled, all the predictions are there at that point. So time to value is really quick. And we can start what we do in our trials is we say, what's a present problem that you have? And we just show them, it's teach them how to fish.
Right.
And we show them how to be successful right off the bat.
Do you have an average deal size?
Yeah, well, it's bimodal. So we've got companies in the kind of 50 to 200 developer range.
Okay.
Those are, those companies 20 to 60K.
Okay.
And then we have the companies that are larger than that. And so we have a set of kind of low to mid 6-figure deals. And so we see like kind of one or the other when we land. But then what's really interesting is we don't need to work with the entirety of an organization to start. We work with a set of people.
Right.
And then we make those people really, really proficient. We make them successful. When we move to the next organization inside the customer, now it's really cool. They not only have us to rely on, but they have their peers to rely on as well. And the crosstalk becomes really powerful.
Right.
And so regardless of where we land, we usually see kind of 2 to 5x expansion.
Right. Well,
from there.
The historic land and expand model.
Land and expand.
Yep. Carol Schultz here. Thanks for watching this excerpt from Authentically Successful. The conversation doesn't end there. So if you want to hear this episode in full and all my conversations with many other successful founders and CEOs, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast.